So we're going to have to measure. So the whole thing I'm going to measure across. So using from your point of view, there's, I'm moving my index finger left. So about there. And that's, from your point of view, that's about 3/4 of the height of its width. I don't want it to come out any further than that, or that. And what's 2/3 of that? Something like that. There's a little indication there, and then there. So I've got a kind of a composition which is going to come in something like that. Okay, now, as usual, I'll probably exceed this, but I've given myself a little bit of room just to allow that to happen. So where's halfway in this? It kind of seems to be about sort of there, doesn't it? Let's see if that's right. Halfway, in the middle of that cherry. So side to side, if I put a mark down there, that's kind of in the middle, then we know the apple's going to come here, and everything else is going to emanate from that side there. Now, what about top to bottom? Where would it be? Could it be that sort of that ridge on the pot that runs around that, where the bowl of the pot comes up? Let's have a look. So index finger to the bottom of that cherry, up to that ridge. Yeah, that would do it. So now we have a kind of a center line we can work from, that we know that the pot, the kind of the bowl of the pot comes up to about there. And then the apple comes to there. So let's get going then. So the bottom of the pot, the teapot, is like that. The apples are, I don't like that. That's better. If that was Van Gogh now, he'd do that post, the thing, he'd just put in another cherry where he wanted to. And I'm sure that a lot of painters do that precise thing. They don't get caught up in details. Oh, well, here's a thing, isn't it? That the handle comes to there. So the handle, the pot can't be, that's all got to occur in that kind of space, because we've got a handle coming out here. We've got a bubble coming up to there. That comes to the middle of the apple. Spout comes up from the middle of the apple and just exceeds the center line. And as usual, sort of drawing is all about sort of making a mark and then correcting it subsequently. See, I've exceeded my rectangle already, but that's fine. Try and do things in straight lines as well. It'll help you sight the lines more easily. That comes off the center line, okay, rather like that. The handle comes down a bit further. Apple. That comes up around there. That comes out of the apple there like that. The danger is actually making things too big. And that is something that I've noticed in my class, is that people get sort of a bit sort of confused when they have to paint something quite big onto a small surface. It isn't kind of an easy concept, I don't think, but it can be done, and it is done. So there we've got the edge. We're not going to make too much of the fact that it's on a box and everything like that. Cézanne's had a whole series of nice cabinets that he could sort of you know, uses stands for his work. Make your lines light and wispy, and then you'll be able to work into them later. I'm drawing in the folds really here, so we know that there's a bit of the napkin comes across here, comes down there like that, and then comes across like that. Don't have to be perfectly accurate at this stage because it's something, can all be corrected. Center of the apple there. And then the cherries kind of run up there like that, up to the edge. And then down there like that, up there again, it's another cherry there. It occupies most of the plate there and around there. I'm not going to start painting or drawing individual cherries. But I'm going to go back to this and start working on this to make sure. There's a light coming down there, comes across there. The cherry here. There's the stalk of the cherry. Okay, and then there's a shadow here. That comes up there. Actually, it's still within the plate, that business there. There. Which makes the plate want to be bigger, I think. The plate's going to make it bigger. And then the cherries will be bigger as well. The handle is kind of more substantial than I have it and slightly lower. Okay. And then that's just all sort of shadow around there. See, there's a negative space there that I want to use for, or to get that shape more accurately there. That would seem to be about it. Let's have a look. Bring that down slightly, the apple. Okay, shadow. Just make sure I have that. Shadow. I'm going to attempt, I'm not sure if I'll be able to get it done, to actually sort of put in some of the pattern there. That's that shadow there coming down there like that. Into there. Shadow in there. In here, that's white, and that comes up to there. Something like that. Okay, that's our drawing. I'm going to turn this to a bit of a notan, which, as you may remember, is kind of a Japanese word just describing this technique of kind of a very, very simple underpainting. Really, it's just a schematic of the darks and lights. I'm just using the burnt umber, whatever is on the brush, And this is kind of like this is slightly different from even from a proper no tan. This is not just blacks and whites. I'm putting it down very lightly where I don't want too dark a tone. The cloth comes down there like that. That's my drawing and schematic done. I'm going to, as I said, start with the apple because it's bright, so that I don't have a kind of really manky brush when I start into these bright sort of things here. I'm going to do that first. Okay, I shall do the red first. All right. So those two colours there, red. That's a nice kind of rosy red for parts of the apple, but there's a darker part around the right edge. And I'm going to use a little bit of blue into the permanent rose, just to sort of, just slightly darken it and turn it slightly cooler, darker. I'm going to put that there, there, yeah. Put that in to soften. I mean, by the time I come around to doing these, that paint will sort of, that won't affect anything going on over the top of it anyway. I'm going to take some yellow and blue. That makes a green, okay? But it's quite a toxic green. It's too pure. And so you need to put in something to mediate that. A little bit of red, just a touch of red, more yellow. That's kind of an apple green there, okay? And now I'm going to, the apple is actually in shadow, most of it. So I'm going to just add in a little touch of black. Add a little bit of oil, get it moving. We're averaging out the whole painting at this stage. So this is blocking in. Kind of the most important stage, really, because from this, everything's in its position and everything is the average of the color and tone that it should be. Now, that red and that yellow that I made, I'm going to mix that green with that, okay? And then we shall get sort of that midpoint in between. Okay, here. It's not an intense red. That part in there is actually darker again. Let me put that in there. But there's a darker part. I'm going to add a little bit more black. It's quite possible that Cézanne didn't use black at all. But looking at his paintings, I think he did, unlike many of the other Impressionists that eschewed black. I could be wrong. It's been known to happen, but just looking at his paintings, it looks like he used black. So that's the apple done. And now let us move on. I'm going to move on to that pot because it's an important feature in that, that painting. I'm going to use my filbert and I'm going to just mix up some burnt umber. I'm just going to put that in. But not everywhere, just the dark parts. Just for the moment, I'm not going to put it everywhere. I'm still sort of doing the straight line business. I'm not sort of painting up to lines in a kind of a junior infant's way. Painting is all about sculpture. It's not about painting up to lines. Okay. Underneath the bubble there. Any other dark parts? I see that around there. That's dark there. And that is a thing about oil painting, is that you are sculpting. I'm sculpting that apple into shape with the tone that's next to it. I'll do the cherries. And you saw me making that red for the apple, this one here. And the cherries are very much like that. I'm going to put those darks in first. That's a dark one. dark. Goes down there. Okay, there's some light areas there. That goes all the way up to the apple. I'm going to actually do the rim of that plate, which is a kind of a grey red blue. I'll show you what I mean. It's blue. Put up there. Plus black. Plus a little bit of red. Plus a little bit of white, because it's a grey. It's paler than that. Okay, let's see if this works. Here we go. Oh, that's better. Now it goes into shadow as it comes around here, so I'm actually going to add in more black again. Some shadow there as well. Now this is an important thing, because this is white, obviously. I'm going to show you what I do just to dampen down that white so that we don't compete with the highlights. This is the thing that you have to concern yourself with at this stage of the painting, is that the highlights will actually make that painting more three-dimensional. So you can't compete with them, otherwise the painting goes flat. Plenty of white because there's a fair bit to cover. Okay, and into it, I'm going to add the colors. I'm going to dampen it down with a bit of blue, bit of yellow, bit of red. I'm going to add a little, just a touch of black into that. I don't think it's dark enough yet. Okay, maybe something like that. Okay. Okay, so that would be my white cloth. Yeah, you can see that on there, kind of dark in there. That's really dark there. I'll probably have to make an extra mix for that. It's important to get your averages sort of correct. Well, you know, it's near as damn it as to, you know, to that one's lighter. So we'll put that one in. Put that darker there. There. Okay. A little bit in there. I can place that in a moment. Okay. Cherry's coming up there. Cloth goes down there like that, turns down. Okay, the cloth comes up. It is lit here from the light, which is a bit of an indeterminate light. There is a light off to the top right of this. Okay, there. We've got a lit cloth coming down there. And there. Okay, so, and around the back of this thing here, emanating out from the plate. Okay, so we've got that. And then actually, it goes dark again here. And then light again here. All right, put that in there. Right, I'm going to make up that blue of that cloth, that patterned cloth. It's a blue-grey, a reddish blue in the pattern, something like that. Right, where I see them. not to be too sort of specific about this. You just get caught up in it, and then that's your day gone. And it comes down here as well. See that there? Just gonna fill that in now. It's actually darker again down there. We'll bring that out to the edge. There, and down here it's quite dark too. There, pattern. That comes up there. And let's do the lighter parts of that cloth. Let's put in this anyway. Yes, it's about the same tone as the shadow of the cloth, the white napkin. I think what I'll do is I'll do the background. Painting needs a little bit of red, so the background is a kind of a green-grey. I'm going to grab some white, some yellow, some blue. You can make a perfectly good grey by just using any of those three colours plus white. But if you're not feeling confident about the tone, you can make a grey out of black and white and then add any of those colours into it to tip it into the direction. And it goes yellower as it gets up towards the light, in fact, towards the spotlight, which is up just beyond here. And goes greener again as it gets off to the a reasonably big brush, it spreads out quite easily then. Let that sort of sit there for a while. I'm just going to move this down here. Now this bit I'm kind of inventing because I don't really have that sort of on view. One more thing, we've got the white here, which is actually the same as the cloth, not as light as the highlights. Okay, can we do anything with that there yet? That's a light. That's in shadow there. We've almost got the blocking in done, where we really kind of have the blocking in done, isn't it? That's darker there. Can I add in a dark across there? And that is dark as it comes down here. Okay, I'm going to put in a dark shadow to denote this this fold coming across here in there. Okay. So I see a kind of a reflection of that apple in the cloth, in the shadow there. I'm going to move that shadow up a bit. There. Cut that shadow there. There's a dark in that cloth, in that shadow, just along there, in there. Comes up there like that, down. Then it's got a red shadow there. Dark in here. That teapot now, because I can see that there's a reflection of all this in here. So I'm going to take some of that grey. No, I'll take some of the, yes, it's the cloth really. I'm going to take some of the shadow that I made for that cloth and just mix it in with a bit of burnt umber, because the glaze of that teapot will affect the reflection, dampen it, so to speak. The same way that silver reflects warmly, this will be affected too. Okay, there's a reflection of the apple in that teapot. I'm going to put that in. Might not be so easy to see, but you can see it here though. Here it is a grey as well. Across here it's a grey. Up the side we've got it in there. Don't be sort of drawing little cherry shapes. You sculpt the cherry shapes and you add and you add new little dabs of colour. Just the impression of cherries that you want. There's a shadow underneath some of the cherries, which I should put in, gives them a bit of definition. Move on to the plate again. You're always shaping the things with the paint that's on the outside of whatever it is you're painting. Goes for everything in an oil painting. Pushing that paint into there. I'm going to do a bit of the edge of the plate. Just give it a bit of definition. Okay, back to, well, there's a shadow down here, which is actually very dark. And that allows me to shape the apple a little bit more. Okay, and then again, it just comes under there like that. There's a reflected light coming under here, which is sort of weirdly, first I looked at it, I thought it was green, but it can't be green. And just underneath that pot, I'm going to put it in as a kind of a green grey. And that goes under here like that. We've got some stuff like that. What else am I going to do? There's a like pink up here. We're bouncing around in the painting. The reason we're doing that is just, it looks kind of disorganized. And I suppose it is, because it's supposed to be, is that in an alla prima painting, you don't concentrate on one thing all the time until you get it finished and then move on to another thing. It's because that way you'll get a stilted painting, or you'll run out of time and you won't get it done at all. So you'll get kind of like half a painting. I'm putting in, so this is all reflection that I'm putting in here, reflection of what's around me in my studio. So you don't be specific about that for sure. There's these are kind of like grays, really. They're blue grays that I'm putting in. Blue gray coming up here. It's because most likely it's reflecting the shelves that are above it. Going all the way up here. What's coming down here, this side? Because I want to shape that. That's a kind of a red gray. Everything is gray in this this pot that isn't a dark. In here, that's red as well. There's a lovely dark. I'm going to make that dark again. We'll move that over for a start. Get that into shape. Dark here. I'm going to shape that up. Look, this is sculpture. Shaping that up to there. Not getting it right first time, changing it as you're going along. There. Sculpt that into shape there. Get that, sculpt it into shape there. We've now got a better handle on our, we've got a better handle on our handle. Right, let's grab some of that, shape the bobble part. There must be a bloody word for that. Is it a handle? Okay, pushing that here like that. Sculpt that across there like that. Okay, let us work a little bit on the white napkin. Do you remember it was we had to darken it, didn't we, to keep it away from the highlights? I'm gonna lighten it somewhat now, because I just want to put in notes of warmth, especially where the light is. Okay, so here. You know, when you're painting a large still life as well, I always thought, God, you know, Cézanne is a bit of a mess, isn't it? But it was kind of immediate. What he does was immediate. And, you know, you just won't get it done if you know, unless, certainly not in one sitting, if you don't take risks with the application of paint and do it fast and, you know, plenty of paint that comes around there like that. It's still nice and light around there. It's lovely and light in below. Push that in a wee bit. Pushing paint around like a big bully. We've got that nice light coming down here. And now there are also parts that are light, but cool. So I'm just going to use the same mix with a little bit of blue into it. A little bit of blue, maybe a touch of red. The thing you've got to remember about this palette, and I've said it many times, is that it's made up of cool colors. And the way to make anything of this palette look warm is to put red and yellow. Not just red or not just yellow, but red and yellow into it. It's a quirk of this palette. Every palette has its own sort of quirk. Come around there like that. These are the cool parts in that cloth. Even here, because there's a ridge just here. You can see it sort of. You can see. I can see it in the original. You know, our model, we can get it across there like that. Even in here, slightly. There. Okay. Again. Okay. Anywhere else? In here, maybe. That part of that is lighter and it comes down. And you can see that because that comes down there like that, that shape comes down, that makes it look like the cloth is just coming downwards there like that. Although we do need that there. Okay. Let's move that in so that, yeah. Now, what else are we going to do? We're going to do more on the apple. There's a slight sort of blush on that side. Move those tones together. There's another blush in here. There. Little dabs I'm putting in there. There like that. A bit darker down there, actually, in that apple, and that will give it a sense, more of a sense of roundness. If I put this in here. Okay. Anyone would think that I was avoiding those cherries, wouldn't they? I'm going to sort of make more of those. Well, first of all, the shadows. Here. That one. Shadow down there. There's a light cool emanating from the teapot there and then dissipating over there. Another one here. And a light cool. Coming up here. So it comes all the way up there and shapes that there. Okay, I want my background to join up again. So I'm going to come there like that to join it up with the plate. Okay. Dark, dark. Dark, dark in here. Okay. Cherries. At last, everyone says. I'm going to do more with this cherry here. lighter parts of the cherries. Dark one around there. Need a warmer. Now, more red. I'm just going to use a pure permanent rose on these parts of it. You're just dabbing until you get the shapes kind of the way you want them to look. And as usually, it's just it's an impression. And then, as usual, also, you cut into it too. To show other, you know, to make the thing more populated by cherries, I suppose. Might have to actually change brushes in this regard. Just get that. Let's move a little brush. Actually, not sure how large Suzanne's paintings were. I didn't take any notice of the sizes of them. But I tended to paint sort of a bit larger than we're doing here. I just want to move on, give my arm a break, is move down to the grey of the pattern on this this cloth. Define what's going on here. Folks, and then I'm leaving them. Hello.
Oh, it just froze there for a moment, Kevin.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. And use plenty of paint as well. This is don't be afraid to use your paint. And you'll say to yourself, well, God, yeah, it's expensive stuff and I'll waste it. And that's the truth. You will. There's no getting away from it. It's expensive and you will waste paint, but you kind of have to achieve the results that you need to achieve. Go back down to here again. Join those up a wee bit. That's darker there. And that's lighter here. That's a bit of a highlight going on here. Back to those dark patterns.
Somebody's asking if you're going to do the apple in the foreground, Kevin. The one at the bottom, yeah.
No, I'm not going to do that apple. I can't even see it on the screen. I don't know how you can see it on the screen. I'm not doing it though. You can threaten me, but I'm not doing it. So there's a bit of pattern there, bit of pattern there. Don't get too sort of go do some more of this apple here. That's reflecting. There's reflected light coming from here onto the apple. I'm gonna do a light. Okay. More darks on that pot. It's a mess of reflections in here. Across there. There. Push that out a wee bit. There's a dark down there that I want to have. And another thing I noticed about sort of Cézanne's work is he actually did a lot of delineation. It's kind of good. It's not what you normally do in the classical still life anyway. There's some darker darks in the shadows here. And there's a little light poking through. Here. Blue-grey, put it there. Warm grey there, blue-grey there. All of this stuff that I'm doing can be achieved simply just by painting a single object. We're doing this today because you're not painting, and you know it's better to see something a bit more sophisticated coming up in this situation, I think. But I do that as well. I just paint single objects, and they can be done quickly, and you learn all the things that are going on in this painting, but just in a kind of microcosm, just a small sort of part of it. Apple reflection. Reflected light of plate. And we can do all this because we set the groundwork with the average, and we did the blocking in. Some darks in the side of the plate. Dark blue blacks. Not being too specific. I'm not going to paint the actual pattern. We're just going to show that there is pattern there. Just little dabs. Another question. Yes. Oh, I see. It was Kate who asked the question about the apple. Yeah, I know. I just never get it done, Kate. That'll be for another still life. Down there. Cable in the way. Delineate that. Cézanne was really great at delineation. He was quite, that was sort of brave of him, I think, in the light of what was going on in the art world. His strokes aren't refined. They're just a lot of an absolute sort of hodgepodge of dabs. All giving the impression that there's something going on there. And I don't see any evidence at all of him blending. Okay, some more. I'm going to work on that white cloth again. Put in some more warmth. Highlights in that apple, or at least the sort of a brighter part of that apple. Okay, the real highlight is here. In fact, there is a little thing that I want to put in. It's actually greener than that. Just coming down there like that. Sculpt in those cherries again. Now, let's work on those cherries again. See, they're reflecting all around them too. There are a great many cherries here. Up there. Let's put in a dark in there. It's the same with doing grapes. They take an inordinate amount of time to actually to shape. Okay, we'll do some of the light pinks on some of these. And then some highlights. I'll do some highlights on these cherries. There are some light, some bluish highlights as well. Forgot one there, the bright ones. Okay, so now some of the little stalks. Let's have a look, put them in there. Oh, I have to actually sort of make some of them up for effects. They're not sitting in where I want them to sit. Sgraffito, always useful. Sorry, I should explain that. I mean, sgraffito is an actual technique. I'm not sure if Cézanne used it. It's quite likely he did. He was an accomplished painter. Let me just get some of these highlights in again. Maybe it's an impression that you need to give. It's not a fruit illustration. Let's see some really bright brights in there. That might help to lift that cloth a little bit. Okay. I need a dark underneath that leading cherry. put some darks in those cherries up here as well. Shape this shadow a wee bit. Okay, now okay, so I mean, cold highlights are coming from the windows and from the strip lights, and the warm highlights are coming from the sun. Well, in my case, a studio light. So let me see. I should make the cold highlights first. So white, a lot of white, a bit of blue, and a bit of red to make a kind of a violet color. Okay, and then the warm highlights is white, a lot of white, permanent rose, and cadmium yellow. Okay, so I've got my warm ones and my cool ones. I'm not sure how much of that you can see on yours. So let's go back to the painting. And this is why you can't sort of, you can't compete with your highlights in the other lights. So cold highlights. Any others? Less obvious ones kind of up here. Would have been nice to have that. Cold highlights, cold highlights, cold highlights. And then warm highlights. Okay, so I'm going to put in the warm highlights. So that's that white, yellow, red mix. Just going to do those last. Oh yes, the apple. And now, kind of sort of make good around the painting. Oh yes, sorry, I forgot the plate, didn't I? There are cool highlights on the plate, on the edge of the plate. Like that makes a difference. And then they go, oh, there's another one here. And then there's warm highlights on the rest of the plate. For example, here. Here. And then here, there's a mess of them. Load up the brush. Put those in there. They're kind of like undulations on the surface of that plate. Just putting that in there. Ain't that good? Yeah, I'm not going to do any blending. Anything else? There's another reflection there. Keep missing. You actually just keep going. And you see as you go along lots of different marks that you can put in to improve things. And let me tell you something as well, because texture is something that's well worth exploring. You can just do gratuitous sort of lumps of texture. I'm going to push that. Oops, I don't want it to be too pink. There. There's some sort of violet reflection coming down here like that. Maybe into there as well. And that's a lot brighter than I have it. There.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Very nice.
Wow. Fabulous.
And as far as texture is concerned, let me just go up. It should be able to catch the...
Yeah.
Oh, look at the glass.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Okay, and the gratuitous texture?
Yeah, very, very nice.
It's kind of like, what? In between the cherry and the apple.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.